Good morning, it's Monday the 4th of May. This is Europe Today and I'm Marit Gwyn, coming to you live from Brussels with the news and analysis to start your day. Coming up on today's show, US President Donald Trump is threatening deeper cuts to US military presence in Germany after the Pentagon announced the withdrawal of 5,000 troops on Saturday, escalating tensions between Washington and Berlin. The decision follows comments made by German Chancellor Friedrich Merz saying the US was being humiliated by Iran. And the European Commission says it's keeping its options open after President Trump announced he would hike tariffs on EU cars to 25%. The announcement has left the US-EU trade deal struck last summer hanging in the balance. We speak to the EU's top lawmaker on international trade, Bernd Lange. Also, 48 leaders are gathering in Armenia for a summit of the European political community, with a non-European leader, Canada's Mark Carney, in attendance for the very first time. Carney is seeking to build new alliances with like-minded partners amid a rupture with the US. But first this morning to our top story, because Europe is dealing with the fallout of US President Donald Trump's latest verbal attacks against his NATO allies. Trump signalled over the weekend he would withdraw many more than the 5,000 troops the US said it would remove from Germany on Saturday.
We're going to cut way down, and we're cutting a lot further than 5,000. Thank you very much.
For more, I'm joined in the studio this morning by our correspondent, Shauna Murray. Good morning, Shauna. Great to see you. So this comes after a very public spat between Trump and the German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz. Tell us more.
Yes, so there were pretty ill-fated comments from Friedrich Merz saying that the Iranians were humiliating the White House negotiators and then criticising Trump for his ill-conceived strategy in Iran. And people might say, well, that's actually a fair point because the war is not going well. Gas prices are skyrocketing. The global economy is not doing very well. Donald Trump knows this. And so this sort of added fuel to the fire. Immediately then, Donald Trump said he was studying how to remove troops from Europe. He announced 5,000. And then the last few days has announced that he will remove even more than 5,000. There are around over 80,000 US troops across Europe, about 36,500 in Germany. It has to be said that Europe has been preparing for a drawdown like this, but not in this sort of confrontational way. Now, take a listen to him over the weekend. He was also asked whether he would do the same in Italy and Spain.
Why shouldn't I? Italy has not been of any help to us, and Spain has been horrible, absolutely horrible. And Germany, I mean, he's doing a terrible job. He's got immigration problems. He's got energy problems. He's got problems of all kinds. And he's got a big problem with Ukraine because they're in that mess. And he criticized me for doing the whole thing with Iran. But I said, would you like to have a nuclear weapon in the hands of Iran? He said, no, I don't. I said, well, then I guess I'm right.
A lot being said there. First of all, Italy and Spain. We know that Pedro Sanchez, the Spanish Prime Minister, has been very vocally critical of the war in Iran. But Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy, was once known as the Trump whisperer. So it shows you that these relationships are transactional and very much temporary. And, he's criticising Friedrich Merz and the Germans, but at least they're allowing the US military access to their bases and the use of their skies for the war in Iran. But, overall, this is yet another diatribe, another confrontation between the US and its allies at a very particular critical moment in Ukraine.
And Shauna, in terms of this drawdown, 5,000 troops from Germany, what does that mean now for security and for NATO?
Well, this is the issue because speaking to NATO sources over the last few days is they haven't been given any detail about what this will look like. Will it be a sort of a rotational issue where 3,000 troops are removed and they won't be replenished? Is it from a core group? Is it from the Air Force? They haven't got that detail. And we heard from NATO over the weekend saying that they're working with the US to figure this out. We heard from Mark Rutte, the NATO Secretary General, this this morning. He's in Armenia at the European political community, saying that European allies have heard the message from Trump loud and clear. That is true, and they have been preparing for this. So Germans and other countries have bolstered their forces for the last year or so. So they're well prepared for this. They don't, 5,000 is manageable, but the question is how many more. But crucial to this, Marit, is that even in the last year, I spoke to a NATO diplomat. He said, we're preparing for a withdrawal of troops, but the worst case scenario would be if it happens out of the blue, without collaboration with NATO, and also if it comes after a phone call with Putin, which is exactly what happened here, almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. So it's, Europeans are again sort of in a very, very difficult position with Trump.
OK, Shona, thank you so much for that update and for bringing us up to speed. Now we're moving on because on Friday, President Trump also said he would hike tariffs on EU cars and trucks to 25%. It's left the trade deal struck between the EU and the US last summer hanging in the balance once again. That deal had set a baseline tariff of 15% on most EU goods, including cars, while completely removing EU tariffs on US industrial goods. For more, we're joined live now by the chair of the European Parliament's Committee on International Trade, Bernd Lange. Mr. Lange, really good to have you with us this morning. Can you tell us first, is this announcement, do you think, a political manoeuvre from Trump directed specifically perhaps at Germany?
Yes, good morning, and I think you are quite right. This is a political decision. He is really angry against Germany. We just heard it. And I'm convinced that in this context, he also targeting specifically German car manufacturers. And this will perhaps lead to an extra tariff volume from around 15 billion. So that's really serious. And of course, there are no legal or no economic reasons for that. This is really politically against Germany.
And I think the big question now, Mr. Lange, is how should the EU respond to this? Is it time to move from appeasement to retaliation?
That's really the question we will discuss on Wednesday. So it's totally clear. We saw a lot of breaches or a lot of breaking of the deal of Scotland by the United States. Even some weeks after, we saw that more than 400 products were lifted from 15 to 50% because they are containing steel and aluminium. There's now a written on the 2nd of April where also these products are still in average tariff by 26%. And we saw the Greenland exercise, and we saw that the Supreme Court decided the legal basis was illegal. So I guess now we will reflect and make an assessment about this 1 year of breaking by the United States. I'm not sure that we can really go on. And of course, we have a toolbox of possible reaction, and we will discuss it quite intensively, and we will be serious.
You mentioned a toolbox. We know that there is this kind of trade bazooka, the anti-coercion instrument. Will that be on the table as one of the options?
We have the toolbox, and of course, all tools are in. But in this case, of course, we will look also to other elements like countermeasures, like counter tariffs or export restrictions. So I guess all options are on the table.
But as you said, Mr. Lange, we have been here before. There could be more to come. So far, the EU has not had the political courage, some would say, to introduce, for example, retaliatory tariffs. Do you think that now the time has come and that this will happen?
I'm sure that the mood in the European Union has changed, specifically after this Greenland exercise. And if you read the statement by the Commission yesterday, it was much more clear. And also there was a mentioning of a reaction, and all options are open. So there's a change inside the attitude of the European Union after this long story of unpredictable reaction in the United States.
And Mr Lange, you've been urging EU governments to attach more conditions to the Scotland deal agreed last year, including making EU preferential tariffs conditional on the US respecting its side of the deal. Germany has been pushing against that. Do you think they could now get on board?
In the Council, indeed, there are different positions. Some are more outspoken, some are really trying to de-escalate. Germany, unfortunately, was more in the camp of the second. Now, I guess also here is a change. And we will have also a discussion with the Council on Wednesday. And after that, I can give you a concrete answer what we will do.
OK, thank you so much, Mr Lange. That's all we have time for, I'm afraid, but we'll be following those discussions on Wednesday, as you mentioned. Bernd Lange, the chair of the European Parliament's Committee on International Trade there. Moving on now, the European political community, a forum considered the brainchild of France's Emmanuel Macron, is meeting for a summit in Armenia today. Around 48 leaders are expected to attend, including for the very first time a non-European, Canada's Mark Carney, as our reporter Jakub Janis explains.
Mark Carney has arrived in Yerevan, Armenia, heading to the European Political Community Summit, as he spearheads efforts to create a Middle Powers alliance. This Canadian Prime Minister, holding both Canadian and British passports, represents a unique bridge between the Anglo world and a Europe increasingly wary of American isolationism. And this forum could offer Canada a vital opening to build new European ties. But could the world's most European, non-European country actually become the 28th EU member state? Almost 60% of Canadians now support joining the bloc, with over 80% prioritizing stronger economic ties as a buffer against US political turmoil. And the latest surveys show most Germans and Spaniards back Canadian accession, while in Poland, France and Italy, proponents significantly outweighed those in opposition. And hey, Ottawa is no geopolitical lightweight. Canada's population is around 41 million, which is roughly 10% of the current EU bloc. And while being a founding NATO member, it remains outside the European Economic Area. However, and that's interesting, its GDP per capita remains significantly higher than the EU average. So if Ottawa ever entered the Union, it would be a wealthy net contributor. Alright, but despite the public enthusiasm, the Brussels bubble has just issued a polite reality check. Enlargement Commissioner Marta Kos recently confirmed that while Canada is a state, it fails the European state requirement of Article 49 of the Treaty on European Union. And unlike Ukraine or Turkey, Canada lacks the geographic and ancient cultural connections necessary to satisfy current treaties without a total legal overhaul. However, this relationship could evolve toward a bespoke model, mirroring Norway or Switzerland. A close family bond that provides deep integration into the single market and security programs, while stopping just short of a formal marriage.
If Europe wants to become more independent, yes, indeed, we need partners like Canada.
And for that, Canadians could one day say yes, or oui, as both English and French are Canada's official languages.
Now, as Armenia hosts the 8th European Political Community Summit today, it's also seeking closer ties with European nations amid a rift with its traditional ally, Moscow. For more on the significance of this, I'm joined by our Ukraine correspondent, Sasha Vakulina. Good morning, Sasha. Tell us how significant this is, Armenia hosting the EPC for the first time.
It is absolutely unprecedented, Marit, for anybody who's been following the region and the developments there for years, I would say. Now, there's some of the scenes on Monday morning were used to be absolutely unimaginable, like NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte arriving to the EPS in Yerevan and shaking hands with Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. Armenia, the country that for decades had been seen as Russia's closest ally, the country that still has some standing treaties with Moscow and is officially considered Moscow ally. Now, Nikol Pashinyan, Prime Minister, he tweeted prior to the meeting and he said about the importance of Armenia hosting it. And he said, I'm looking forward to discussions with European partners on the vital topics, including democratic resilience, regional stability and connectivity. Now, this, of course, also reflects a lot Yerevan's intentions voiced last year about them trying to go on the European path and finally join the European Union. But in a bigger picture, this fact that Yerevan is indeed hosting the EPS and then tomorrow the EU-Armenia summit cements the fact and this U-turn in Armenia's foreign policy, which we have been observing since a couple of years, but specifically since Armenia and Azerbaijan found this treaty and the peace agreement and put an end to decades of bloody conflict in Karabakh.
Yes, really fascinating, Sasha. But also the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelensky, also at the EPC summit today. How significant is that?
I would say that, same as with Mark Rutte arriving to Yerevan, the scene of Volodymyr Zelensky arriving to Yerevan, that's sort of another nightmare that is definitely very closely watched in Moscow. Now, this is Zelensky's first ever visit to Armenia, and he was rather cautious commenting on it when he tweeted, and he said, many meetings ahead. The key priority is more security and coordination for all of us. Now, he's, of course, talking about more and better security deals and cooperation between Ukraine and other, not only European countries, but the fact that he is visiting indeed the country where there is still a Russian military base is very important. And, of course, also this visit comes just a week after he visited Azerbaijan as well, discussing security deals.
Okay, Sasha, thank you so much. And we'll, of course, keep an eye out on the EPC in Armenia today and as well as that EU-Armenia summit taking place tomorrow. But moving on now, last week, a coalition of European mayors met with the European Council President Antonio Costa to discuss the housing crisis gripping many parts of Europe. The issue is back on the agenda this week with the Commission and Parliament co-hosting a high-level meeting on the housing crisis tomorrow. Our correspondent Angela Skujins caught up with the mayor of Rome, Roberto Gualtieri, and started by asking him why Brussels should dedicate political capital to tackling the crisis.
This is an issue of social justice, an issue of inclusion. It is also an issue of competitiveness growth because labor mobility is key. And if workers have difficulty to move to cities, to big cities, that also affects our economic growth. So it's a priority, it's an emergency. And this is the reason why we created this alliance of mayors for affordable housing. We elaborated proposals, very concrete proposals, not just slogans, and we are here to present them to the European Commission.
You say that it's an emergency. Do you think the European Commission is taking you seriously?
They did because this commission has introduced a very important new element, which is a commission dedicated to housing, because they are listening to us. But of course, now is the time to move from listening to deliver results.
Could you argue that the short-term rentals are causing the most issue? What are the other points that are causing contention here?
The short rentals are a component of these tensions, not the only one. That's very important because the main problem is that public housing policies have been put in the, out of the policy tool of Europe and Italy for a lot of time. So let's go back to the refounding of a European nation state after World War II and with a welfare state, European social model. This is composed in 4 pillars: health, public health, education, pensions and housing. Now, the fourth part of this, social model policy tool is out. There is not anymore. So we don't have public housing policy of significant magnitude, and so that's the reason. So we need first to recreate a robust pillar of public housing, public policies. Then, of course, we have also to address the tension that short-term rentals create on housing markets, especially in very touristic cities.
The Mayor of Rome, Roberto Gualtieri, speaking to our correspondent, Angela Scugins there. But that's it from us for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have comments or questions for us, remember you can email us at europetoday@euronews.com. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow. See you then.